Hi, everybody. I'm going to try this again. My other video got interrupted. So, I just finished volume 2 of War and Peace, and I, just finished it, half an hour ago. You can see that. The first time I did a video for volume 1, I was about 100 pages into volume 2, so I want to do this now, so that way I have all this kind of still fresh in my head. Now, volume 2, I thought was not as enjoyable, or it's not the same kind of enjoyment that I got out of volume 1. Volume 1, I thought was great, and I think part of it was, for one, it's all new characters. You're being introduced to everybody, and everything is just kind of different and exciting, and then all of a sudden this happens, and these people are introduced, so there's a lot of new, obviously, being thrown at you in volume 1. And the really big aspect of volume 1 that I think is exciting is bouncing back and forth between the war front and the high society kind of Russian aristocrats and all of these really wealthy families. I think that's part of the excitement for volume 1. But volume 2 is still really, really, really good. There was just a couple of times where there were some dips or some lulls in the story. I feel like there were some chapters that were two characters on their own interacting in one location, and it was really a one-sided conversation, that one of them was kind of in their own head through most of the chapter, and that they weren't really contributing much. And I understand that it shows that bigger picture that you're going to have, especially a book of this size, you're going to have some boring kind of real life moments, and that's completely fine. Again, I really liked volume 2 a lot, especially the closer you get to volume 3, like parts 4 and 5 of volume 2 are really, really good. Volume 2 is about halfway through this. It is, let me get all the way back here. We are, right there. So it's about twice as much. When you finish volume 1, it's about the same exact amount of pages as volume 1 is. Volume 2, there's two things in particular I want to talk about with volume 2, and one of them is kind of religion and beliefs, because there's two characters in particular that have these kind of internal crises that I think relate to Tolstoy throughout his life and then into his later life to his death, and then relationships. Volume 1 has a few sections where we start to see kind of the foundations of some relationships. Now we see some of those foundations crumble or get stronger or just change and continue to be built upon, which I think is really great. I really like that aspect of volume 2. So the first thing, the religion kind of belief systems that I wanted to talk about, was, first of all, one of the main characters, Pierre. Pierre has a very weird moment throughout part of volume 2, and I don't remember exactly where it was in the actual book, but throughout volume 2, Pierre has this weird kind of existential crisis. Again, I think it reflects what happened with Leo Tolstoy throughout his life as well, is that he looks at religion a little bit differently than people do at this time period, and Tolstoy is excommunicated from the Russian Orthodox Church, and Pierre's character has this moment where he has this crisis and wants something else from his life besides the single kind of bachelor drinking and gambling life that he has. And he's married, so he's not really a bachelor, but he treats it like that, like he did at the start of the book where he is single, before he inherits this massive fortune. He's still trying to cling on to that, and he has this moment where he wants something more. He wants a definitive path in his life, and he ends up joining the Freemasons, and he breaks down Freemasonry. He breaks down these three kind of people that he believes sign up to be Masons, the people that really just want to know what the secrecy is. They're not actually interested in what it offers you or what it's about, what it's supposed to do, but just what is it in general, that they just want to be a part of it so they can figure out what the secrecy and kind of fun is behind Freemasonry. And then the people that are there to have something to do. that they are a part of it. They kind of do what they need to do, but they don't ever go above and beyond. There's a section in here that Pierre talks about people refusing to donate to these causes that Freemasons supposedly have. And they talk about how Pierre uses his massive fortune to kind of offset the lack of those donations. And then the people that really, really want to do this and do it well and contribute to the human race in a way that Freemasons are supposed to do. And he has another kind of mini crisis towards the end of his time talking about Freemasonry. But really great. And I like how it kind of reflects Tolstoy and his own kind of issues with religion throughout a part of his life. And this idea that Tolstoy had these kind of moral guidelines, this moral code that you're supposed to follow, but then he even acknowledges the fact that he doesn't stick with it very well, and then after so many mistakes, he comes to the conclusion that humans are just too complex to have these strict moral codes and duties, where humans need something more complex to match their own complexity. And I think you start to see that with Pierre. I think Pierre kind of reflects, in my opinion, as much as I've gotten into this, and what I know of Tolstoy, Pierre kind of reflects some of those aspects of Tolstoy's own life, and it kind of puts it into this book here. The other religious section of this that I want to talk about is significantly shorter than Pierre's time with the Freemasons, but still really, really interesting. And kind of the flip side of this coin is one of the other characters, Prince Andrei's sister, who is very, very religious, and her father does not like it. Her father thinks it's kind of funny. He's an elderly guy, very gruff, very rough, and very open with his own opinions. If he thinks something is silly or dumb, he's going to say it. And he does that with Prince Andrei's sister. But her name is Sonia. But Sonia has this, again, almost like an epiphany moment, the same kind of path that Pierre gets led down. She has it with devoting a lot of her time to religion. And she brings it up. There are people that die in this volume that she writes to children or aunts or family members of the deceased, and basically says, if you believe in God, if you trust in God, that this is part of the plan, and it's all completely fine as long as you do XYZ. And Sonia really dives into the religion aspect of this book, or not of this book, but of this story. I know she writes a couple of letters to a friend basically saying that she's going to devote more of her time to religion because it gives her meaning and it gives her purpose, and it kind of helps lead her down a specific path that she wants to go down. So I think that's really interesting, that kind of this duality of what kind of belief do you have to have a purpose in your life. And Pierre with the Freemasons are very, very religious, but Sonia does this on her own, and Pierre uses the Freemasons kind of as a vessel for his belief in God, is for me what it comes out to be in Volume 2. The second part of this that I really want to talk about, and you guys saw how many pages Volume 2 was, there's obviously so much that we could break down and discuss, but the kind of religious duties, religious paths that I thought were very interesting I wanted to talk about, and then the relationships primarily between Prince Andrei and his short-lived fiancée, Natasha. Now, when I made the first video on Volume 1, Prince Andrei gets back from the war, that he's injured, nobody knows where he is, and he shows up while his son is being born. And his son is born, and then his wife passes away. And Prince Andrei is a really interesting, kind of eccentric character, because he loves and doesn't love all at the same time, which I think is really kind of an interesting aspect of his life, or his character, is that he loves his wife, and he's obviously devastated when she passes away due to the birth, but he went to war to get away from her. So he has this kind of freeing moment, but then he still has his son. So he's not completely free, and he loves his son, but his sister does most of his son's education and training and raising. Prince Andrei continues to just live his life. And Prince Andrei ends up going to see a family friend of his, part of the Rostov family, and meets his friend's daughter, who's 16, 17, kind of in her later teens, and ends up falling in love with her. And it's kind of I don't know what the right term is, but her parents aren't super excited about Prince Andre falling in love with her, and then his dad does not like the idea of him falling in love with her either, or getting engaged. And eventually he does. He talks to her parents. They reluctantly give their approval, and then his father says that he has to wait 1 year or until he's dead to marry Natasha, which he's okay with, but not to the most part. That he tries to convince his father, and he tries to get his sister to convince his father that he should be able to marry Natasha now, and his father does not give in. So Prince Andre leaves and basically ghosts Natasha. Like, he does not write, he doesn't really say anything to her over the course of this year. And throughout most of Volume 2, she is very, very, very devoted to Prince Andre. But the interesting part that we see from him and his wife, his former wife, to Natasha, is that once they're engaged, he kind of falls out of love with her pretty quick and tells her he's going to go on this trip and that she should not feel bad if she falls in love with another man. Well, now we see Natasha and Prince Andre throughout this year, throughout Volume 2, and he's starting to fall in love with her again as he's gone. And she starts to fall out of love with him as he's gone. And she still loves him very much, but another man shows up on the scene and tricks her into falling in love with him. And this character is not a great person. They refer to him by the end of Volume 2 in Part 5 as a vile man or a vile creature, and he basically kind of conditions or grooms Natasha to want to fall in love with him and want to marry him. He meets her in all these different places, at these parties, at the opera. He flirts with her. He kind of grabs her as they're dancing at these soirees. And eventually he starts writing love letters to her. And then they come up with this huge plan to basically kidnap her and then take her away, and then they're going to get married in secret. But the problem is that guy is already married and doesn't tell her. So when they find out that he's going to, again, quote-unquote, kidnap her, that everybody kind of gets together in this household, the Rostov household, and kind of fends him off and gets him away. And they have to kind of break the curse that he has over Natasha and tell her he's not a good man. He's doing this because he wants to have a temporary fun, not actually marry her and love her. And she just doesn't believe it and doesn't believe it. And she breaks off the engagement with Prince Andre, but then this man of hers is forced to leave by one of Prince Andre's friends. And when Volume 2 ends, Pierre, the friend of Prince Andre, he's kind of torn now between Prince Andre, who's his really, really good friend, and he's been basically cheated on by his fiancée. She breaks off the engagement, and he wants to stand up for him. But with Natasha being so young and vulnerable and never really having understood what love is, he starts to feel that kind of pity for her, that he doesn't want to be really mean to her about this, that he wants to help her. But when we see Part 5 of Volume 2 end, he's kind of torn between going back and forth. Prince Andre returns, is in love with her, but realizes that she was getting ready to go marry another man, and it's been called off. So Prince Andre is done with her, doesn't forgive her for what happened, but wishes her the best anyway. And he's supposed to go deliver that message to Natasha. And then when Pierre arrives at Natasha's house, she says that she also is fine with the split and she understands what she's done, but she needs Pierre to fight for her to get Prince Andre's kind of acceptance of her apology for what happened. So I am very, very, very excited to see what Part 3 has in store for Pierre, Natasha, and Prince Andre, and to see how this continues to unfold. I am about halfway through War and Peace, so I will keep you guys updated with anything interesting, and thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great Sunday. Bye.